This video file is recorded in Sabancı University during the recitations for the CS201 Introduction to Computing course, as it was given in the fall 2016 semester.
Before continuing with the new code, I just wanted to clarify something. In the previous code, when we started, we just used the random assumption, the assumption that when I declare or define an integer variable, by default its value is 0. And I'm going to do this stuff here, but it's not, I mean, you shouldn't rely on that because sometimes it might not be correct. That's why when we declare the vector random counter that keeps counting the appearances of the outcome of random generating the numbers, I didn't explicitly show it here. So I'm going to do it here with a for loop. So I count the occurrences of generating of random numbers from the range. And initially I assume that everything is 0. That's why I'm going to do it with this loop. I start integer I is equal to 0. Okay, up until either the size of the random counter was max minus low plus 1, so I'm going to use it. From 0, I go up until here, I plus plus, and I say that rand counter of the index I is 0, meaning that I set everything to 0. I can comment it here that all of the counters of the range counters are set to 0. Okay, this is what the function is doing. Also, instead of using this part here, usually, if I am sure that the range is max minus low plus 1, as it is in this case, but sometimes you don't know the size of the vector, that's why you can use the rand counter point size function. Okay, this is better. So you set everything to be 0 and you count the appearances of all numbers starting from 0. Now let's go with another example. So remove this guy here and go to the folder which is called there's only one file about that. It's called letter.cpp. Just copy paste it to a solution folder. And I've already done it, so it's here, letters.cpp. I'm just going to add it to my project. So letter cpp. Now let's see what is this program doing. Let me show you the demo. I'm going to use an input. Let's say our input is going to be this one. And I'm going to count the letters of the English alphabet. And so I'm not going to count the appearances of random numbers. In this time they're going to be letters. And I want to know in these particular files how many A's I have, how many B's, C's, and so on. But I'm counting only the appearances of letters, okay? So punctuation signs, comma, semicolon, question mark, whatever, I don't care about them, full stop. I only care about letters, 1 and 2. Capital A, lowercase a is the same, okay? So I'm not going to say, okay, there were 5 capital A's and 100 lowercase a's. It's the same for me. I'm going to say there were 105 appearances of the character of the letter A in this particular document. So this will be our input in our case. It can be any document. Let me run the program. So I'm giving this input sentences, point txt. I'm reading this guy character by character and count the occurrences of all of the characters. And this is the result. What do you think? Don't say it. Which letter is the most frequent in English language? A? A or E? Exactly. When I say exactly, I mean for E. E is the most frequent letter in the English language. It's not only the case in this document, It's okay, always, I mean. It has been proven that it's like this. If you're dealing with the cryptography course, oh, in this case I think E appears like 7 times. No, 31 times, I'm sorry. So yeah. Okay, so if you take a very long document, okay, like maybe millions of, or billions of characters, and how it's done usually. Usually you take, let's say, newspapers, online newspapers, and you collect all the texts of the newspapers, and then you count the frequency of each letter, and you come out with the frequency of letters of the English alphabet, okay? And it's approximately something like this, okay? Not exactly. Because the size of the input should be very large in order to have more recurrent values. Just with as it was the case with random numbers. If we generated 500 random numbers, the distribution was not equal, okay? If we generate 5 million random numbers, it will be equal for all the numbers in the range. So, this is it. How many letters do we have in the English language? You don't know? You don't remember? Exactly. So, how are we going to do this stuff? We are going to declare a new vector with 26 elements, starting from index 0 to 25. And in each index, I'm going to keep the appearances of the letters, okay? And I'm going to count. And in the end, I'm going to count the percentage of them. But before going to the implementation part of this program, okay, this was just a demonstration how it should look, I want to tell you something. Let's say I want to show you something. I have a character called K. And I'm doing something like this. I'm trying to print out, and K has some value, okay? I'm reading K as it's a user input. And I want to print this stuff. K plus 5. Is this doable? I have a character, and I want to add 5 to that character. But 5 is an integer, K is a character. Do you think this is a mistake or not? Why do you think it's not a mistake? It's going to be automatically converted to integer. Very nice. So automatically, when I have this sign plus and an integer, automatically this character K is going to be converted in integer in accordance to this table. This is the Ascii table. Okay, for instance, if I say that K is B, lowercase b, if I give it as an input, can you please find B? Where's B? B is here. So A is 97, B is 98. You read the decimal values here. It's from 0 to 127. So B is going to be converted to the corresponding integer value from the Ascii table. And what's going to be the output? The output will be 100. So B was 97. So this is 97. 97 plus 5. The output will be 102. Okay? Nice. What if I say something like this? I know I come up with an integer number. Let's say 101. And I want to find the corresponding ASCII character. Can we do it? One of the ways to do this is the following. So I write something like this, character 101. Okay? The output of this guy will be, what's the corresponding value of 101? What's the corresponding character of the integer 101? It's E. Okay, so this will be E. Basically, better put, I can say something like this. Character. Let's say the name of the character is C, 101, and it's E. And always remember, characters are in single quotation mark, and strings are in double quotation marks. Otherwise, you will get mistakes. So this is the intro part that you're going to need for this code. Even if you don't use this C, automatically, if you want to print CHAR 101 as a character, basically you're converting. It's called casting. You remember the double part that we wrote previously? It's called casting, converting one type to another, converting or casting. This is doing the same thing, converting integer to ASCII. There are some functions also available, I think in the C type library, if I'm not mistaken. One of the function is called isAlpha. This function returns true or false, 0 or 1. As a parameter, it takes a character. If the character is part of the English alphabet, it returns true. If it's not part of the English alphabet, it returns false. Okay? When I say English alphabet, it doesn't, I mean, it can be lowercase, as it's here, you see? There are also lowercase numbers, not capital ones. And the capital numbers, uppercase. They are both in the English alphabet from A to Z, uppercase A to uppercase Z, from lowercase a to lowercase z. I think we did some kind of function, we wrote a function in the scope of the CS201 like 5 or 6 weeks ago. Another function is the function toLower. We have used the function toLower from the string utilities that we have defined and written. But you can use also from the C-type library, which is part of the C++ package. Okay, it's converting basically a character to lowercase. It takes a parameter and converts it to lowercase. If it's a lowercase already, it stays lowercase. If it's uppercase, it converts it to lowercase. There's another function called toUpper. We're not going to use it, but you should know it. It converts everything to uppercase. So this will be enough for understanding the program that we are going to write. So basically, the algorithm is the following. The general idea of what we are going to do is the following. I'll have a vector called count, and I count here the appearances of letters of the English alphabet, and I count them. I read characters one by one from an input file, and I increment the corresponding counter of the corresponding letter by 1 if that particular letter occurs. So I start from 0 and I go up to 25 because we have 26 letters in the English language. And so this is the vector count. I'll put A's in the index 0, B's in the index 1, C's in the index 2, D's in index 3, and so on. So 25, index 25 corresponds to which letter? Z, W, X, Y, Z, yes, it's Z. Initially, of course, everything is 0. Again, by default, if you define an integer, its value is going to be 0. But it's not a polite way to define to define a vector, and just to assume that it will be always 0, because some compiler might give a random values to those integers. Okay, by default it's 0, but you should make sure that it's always 0. Okay, so you saw this input file here. You saw the input file, and we are reading all characters one by one. If the character is alpha, meaning if it's part of the English alphabet, then I am converting it to lower because the compiler differentiates between lower and uppercase letters. Okay, so this A and this A are not the same. They're different characters. Okay, that's why I'm converting them to lower, and I'm counting the appearances of them in the file, in the input file. If it's alphabetic letter again, I'm converting into lower, and I'm increasing the corresponding index by 1. Initially everything is 0. So this is the logic behind the code. Now your job will be to write some parts of the code. It's not everything written. So let's start and explain what are we doing. First I'm going to start with the libraries that I've included. You have seen the Ifstream library. Basically it includes both iStream, Ifstream, and ofstream. We are going to use it here for the Ifstream. The functions that I already explained, toLower and isAlpha, are part of this library, CC type. And of course I include the vector class because I'm going to keep everything in the vector. Now I define two functions, prototype functions. The first one is the print function. It takes a reference to a vector of integer type and a total, meaning total is the total number of characters that we have read from the file. There's another file called count. It actually takes 3 parameters: the input, Ifstream reference to an Ifstream variable, a vector variable of integer type, it's also reference, and reference to the total. Basically what we are going to do is the following. First we will open the file, we'll check if everything is okay. If everything is okay, we are going to call this count function. This count function will do all of the job. It will iterate from the beginning to the end. It will return the total number of characters in that file, and also the vector with the corresponding count sent for each character, okay? So, if I send the input file, let's say this guy here, this is what the count is going to do. This is my input. Let's say if this is my input, and I say hi, comma, I am, this is empty space, this is also empty space, I am, empty space, rtrim, full stop. This is what it's working. Initially everything is 0, so the count function is doing the following thing. Total is the total number of characters in this file. Initially total is 0, and I start getting characters one by one. Age. Is age an alphabetic letter? Yes, it is. I convert it to lower, and after converting it to lower, I increment the corresponding counter for the age. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Okay, so this 0 is incremented to 1, but also total is incremented to 1. Okay, then I take I, and let's say somewhere here, I increment I by 1 also. Then I take I is also alphabetic letter. I convert it to lower because you will see I will have a uppercase I here, and they're different, but I don't care about the upper or lowercase. Then I'm taking the comma, and I'm checking, is comma alphabetic letter? No, it's not. That's why I'm not going to do anything. I'm taking an empty space. Is empty space a part of the alphabet of the English language? No, it's not. That's why I'm not going to do anything. Then I take I. Is I alphabetic letter? Yes. I convert it to lower, and the increment corresponding index of I, so from 1 it's going to become 2, and the total number of characters up until now is 2. I'm taking an empty space, it's not an alphabetic letter. I'm taking A. Is that alphabetic? Yes. Convert to lower, increment A, the corresponding index for A, and so on. And when the function counts is finished, I will have those letters set here, okay? So I have 2 A's here, that's why A is going to be 2. What else? 2 R's, let's say the corresponding index for R is here. I have 2 R's. I have 3 I's, I. For I will have 3, and so on. Initially, how many characters do I have? Characters, when I say not characters, alphabetic characters. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for rtrim. M, 8, 9, 10, 11. So total will be 11. I don't count the commas, empty spaces, since they are not alphabetic. So when the count function finishes, I have this vector here, plus, as a result, the total number of alphabetic characters. Also, I send the input as the Ifstream, actually, not the file itself, as a parameter, okay? And in the print function, I print the data. So let's go first see the count function. So, okay, let's go with in the print parts. As you can see, I print this stuff here. A, 19, 7.7, okay? B has only one occurrences, which is 0.4%, and so on. Let's go to the main part, and we are going to change the code. Total letters is 0 initially. This is the counter for all letters. I define another variable file name. I prompt the user to give the file name. I open the file name. If it fails, nothing. I just print the message and return 0. If it doesn't fail, meaning that if I open the file, then I'm declaring a vector which is called in main. This is in main. CHAR counts, and it has 26 elements. Then I'm calling the function count, and you remember in the function count everything was sent as a reference. I have in the CHAR counts, I have set the corresponding counters for the corresponding letters set, meaning I have the count of the appearance of each alphabetic letter. I have here the total number of letters. Those are sent as parameters, so in a sense count returns two values: the vector that we are asking for and the total number of alphabetic characters in the input file. And afterwards I print the vector. That's why I send the vector itself as a parameter and the total number of characters. Seen, see, in, get, seen, ignore. Now let's go and deal with the count function. So, references, parameters that I sent are all references. Input, the vector which was called char counts in main, now it's called counts, and the total number of characters. So what I'm doing is the following. I'm getting character by character. If the character is an alphabet, a letter of the English alphabet, I'm converting it to lower, and I'm incrementing the corresponding index of the vector by 1. That's why I use plus plus. So, what do you think we should have here? I get characters one by one. So how do I get a character? You remember from the first lecture? Input takes a word. But character? Get CH, get character, yes. And CH was not part of the, CH was part of member function of the Ifstream class, so that's why, since it's part, I'm writing it as input point get. Do you see CH here? Okay. What's the problem? So input it's like this. If we have defined here, this is IF, so okay, it should be like get CH, but it's not where. I think it was that get CH or get C, because I know in some languages, but I forget which one, in order to get a character you use get CHAR, get character, but I think it was like this, get and not get CH, but only get only get without that part. Okay, so we get the character. This CH is a reference, so we have it here, and I'm asking if that character here. By the way, before starting the while loop, I basically reserve a memory part, a chunk of memory for the character. Then I get character by character from the file. If the character that I got is part of the English alphabet, I go here, convert it to lower, because sometimes, I, uppercase, lowercase, I don't care about them. And now this is the most important part here. How can I set the corresponding index How can I increment the corresponding index of the character that I have already read? So remember, A is 0, B is 1, C is 2, and so on. How am I going to do that? And remember also, everything is converted to lower. One more time? A minus K. Minus character, the CH. So if you do something like that, here we expect an integer because this is the index, okay? A, what's the value of A? Let's say, I think it's 97 in the Ascii table. Let me check it. So A is 97. And the character, if it's 107, let's say, I'm doing 97 minus 107 is going to be minus 10. But it can be that smaller. Exactly. So it will be K minus A. Meaning the character, CH, minus A. So let's write it. This is CH minus A, but A will be written like this. Okay? With single parenthesis. So, again, A in the Ascii table has a value of 97. Let me write it here. A is 97. B is 98. C is 99. And so on, up until Z is 122. Now let's say that I have occurrence of B or C. So value of C is 98. Is that 90? No, 99, as you can see. If C occurs, its corresponding ASCII value, that's in decimal, is 99. When I increment it, when I subtract it by 97, it's going to be how much? 99 minus 97, it's 2. So 99 minus 97 is 2. The second index, okay? If, let's say, D occurs, and this is 100, 100 minus 97 is 3, is the third index. Okay? That's why we wrote it in that manner. Of course, since A is 97, you can write it in the following manner. Not character minus A, but you can write it character minus 97. Which one is more suitable for you? Minus A or minus 97? They are the same. But the problem with the 97, you might forget 97. That's why if you write it like this, with A, you don't have to remember that the ASCII code of A is 97, okay? You just write it like this. But if you are sure, if you know the ASCII code of a certain character, then you don't have to write it like this. But this is better, because you might forget. Okay, so if we find a certain letter, the index of that is going to be incremented. So again, if I have for the character C, which is 100, minus 97 is going to be counts of 3, and counts of 3 is here. That plus sign is going to increment it, and if it was 0 initially, it's going to be 1, okay? And I repeat this while until the end. So remember that the get function returns true if we can get a character. If we cannot get a character, meaning if we are in the end of the file, that this get function is going to return false. So we are outside of the loop, and we have set this counter. But there's something else missing here. What should we return also? Do you see? I mean, you see the parameters. We're taking an input, we're taking a vector, and in the vector, when we are finished, we should have the count set for all the letters. And we are taking total. Total is the total number of characters. So, do we have it here? Yes or no? We should add it, but how? Let's go to main. We didn't count. Yeah, we should count it here. Total letter initially was not defined. Yeah, it's 0 initially. So when we send total letter here, from in main it's called total letters, in count it's total. So when we find the character, we also increment the total. Okay, total plus plus. If it's alphanumeric, automatically increment it, since it's an alphabetic letter, and then set the corresponding count for the letter. Increment the corresponding count for the letter. Okay, we are done with this count function. Let's go to the print function. We should do something similar. So we start from 0 up until 25. Ignore this part here. It's about some arrangement of the characters. If you want, I can tell you what it is about. The important part is here. We print the output, and the output should be printed like this. We print the letter A, the count of the letter 19, and the percentage, 7.7 for instance, okay? So, how do I print the letter? I start from index k, so what do I do here? Letter A has index 0, letter B has index 1, but I should convert it in characters here. How do I convert the indexes in character? An idea? Okay, let's say k is 0. And I want, instead of 0, I want to print A. Because A corresponds to 0 in our vector. Count for A is put in the index 0. So how am I going to do that? A plus k, of course. So I have A plus k. And I convert it to character. So if k is 1, A plus k is going to be one more letter after A in the Ascii table, which is B. If k is 2, A plus 2 is going to be C, and so on. And so this part is going to be an integer. If I have plus, this part is going to be an integer, but because of this casting, it's going to be a character again. Now, I print the letters here, then I have a tab, this is the tab. Then I print the corresponding count of k. So count for, if I start for 0, I print A, and count of A is 17, and in this case 19, I print 19. Now I print another tab. Now I should print the percentage of A letters in the input file. How am I going to do that? You remember that I have also the total number of characters. So if I'm asking for a percentage, that means that I should divide it by total. And where do I have the count of the numbers? I have it in count k. But count k is a double. Counts k, this is the name of the vector. It's an integer. Count is integer 1, 2, 3, 5. That's why I'm going to convert it to double. So when I divide it by total, I don't lose the part after the decimal point. And afterward, and since I'm printing it in percentage, I don't want to print it like, okay, 0.09 or 0.15 of 0.15 number of characters were part of this character. Percentually 0.15 A's were found in this file. No, I want to print it in percentages. That's why I write 100 multiplied by this part here. And of course I have the percentage sign with new line. So percentage sign and new line. This is our code. Any questions about the code? No? If this is it, then let me explain you very briefly about your homework, what you should do. It has been assigned for like 7 days at least. Okay. This is your homework. You see here, you are going to read 2 inputs and you have 1 output, just as well, it was the case. You remember the word pool you gave, and you gave a character and check it, spell checking stuff, the homework that you did. Well, you're going to do something similar, but not only for one word, for multiple words, and you don't give the words from the keyboard. You read them from an input. Both the word pool and the words are written from an input. So, let's say that you have a pool. This is the correct definition of your words. Okay? And that you want to correct them. Okay? So, again, this is the correct definition. This is the pool. And you give those words, Boston. And you want to find whether this Boston is in the vocabulary or not. Okay? If it's not in the if there's a mistake, and the number of mistake, what do I mean of mistake? I don't find any match Boston here. Okay, in this file, I don't find any Boston match. Then I should correct it. And how do I correct it? If the corresponding number of characters, if the differences between the corresponding number of, if the number of differences of the corresponding characters is smaller or equal to the half of the length, then I should consider that word. For instance, Boston has 6 characters. Okay, then I should find here a word of 6 characters that corresponding characters, number of corresponding characters is at most, the difference is at most the half of the length. The half of 6 is 3. So you see Boston and Boston, they have one difference between letter, the second letter. Okay, so it will be taken into account. What do we have else? Nothing else. But for this, which one? Canton, for instance. Canton and Phaeton have only one difference, so it will be taken into account. But Canton and Balkan have also one difference in between, so it also will be taken into account. So your output should be like this. You have some output 1, okay, input, this is it. So you give the word Boston, and it's incorrect, because you check this is your vocabulary. Boston is incorrect, and find the closest match. The closest match for Boston is Boston, and you write it. Then you check for Canton. But for Canton, you have 2 words that have the same length with Canton, and the number of differences of the corresponding characters is 1. And they are Boston and Phaeton. So Canton, you can be either Boston or Phaeton as a suggestion, okay? From this pool. They both have one character differing with Canton. Then you go to Bardak, and Bardak has 6 characters, and the closest to Bardak is Balkan, because B and B are the same. Yes, A and A is the same. L and R are different, so this is one difference. K and D, this is 2 differences. K and N in the end, these are 3 differences. Okay, which is equal to the number of the length, to the length of the character, which is 6. So that's why instead of Bardak, I'm printing Balkan. Now let's go with Tane. The closest to Tane are Bont and Yant. Bont and Yant. Okay? And Kara, I didn't find anything close to Kara, that's why I'm printing it like this, in curved parentheses, in curved brackets, because you don't have suggestions. The same applies to Pendic. So this is also your input. You don't find anything that has, Pendic has how many characters? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You don't find anything that has 6 characters, corresponding characters, same with Pendic. That's why you don't have a suggestion for that. And if you don't have a suggestion, you write them in big parentheses, basically, in big brackets, okay? So, no matching for Pendic. Here, that's why you write it like this. No matching for Kara, that's why you write it like this. This is your homework. If you did your third or fourth homework, you can basically use the same code here. Okay? But pay attention. For the first word, you have only one output here. For the second word, you have only one output, and that output might be more words. Okay? If you have more words, with the same number of differences, you print all of them. Okay? If you don't have a word, matching word, you print it like this, meaning that you don't have a suggestion. If there is only one mistake, you print it. Okay? If the word is correct, you print it as it is. Questions? If you have any problems about the homework, you can mail me. The deadline, I think, is tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Okay, this is it. See you next week.